This is a previously recorded episode of the IT and the D Show.
Welcome to a special edition here of the IT and the D Show. We are hanging out live on the floor of the Great Lakes Comic Con in the home of my alma mater, Macomb Community College. Go Marauders.
And your 4 associate's degrees.
Exactly. But we're sitting here on the floor, and lo and behold, we're sitting next to, dare I call you a legend?
Some people do, but I'm not sure why.
I don't want to get your ego too inflated.
No, don't.
But we're hanging out with Jeff Lee. He is the creator and inventor of QBert. Now, as any grown man can attest to, we've spent more quarters.
Oh, I was going to say, I can't even begin to count the number of quarters that sucked out of my life over the course of the years.
And that was at least a top 4 game, in my opinion. Like when you played Tron, you played QBert, you played Galaga, and you were content.
And you laughed because QBert swore.
Yes.
Exactly. That was the best part. But Jeff, I guess let's go back. How did, getting into designing video games and all that, how did you get into this? How, back then it was kind of like a wild, wild west, right, in terms of video games. I guess walk us through how you got started in the video game design.
Well, like many things, it's someone I knew.
Okay.
A personal friend of mine, Richard Tracy, was art director at D. Gottlieb and Company, the pinball manufacturer. And at the time, I was working at a community college. A little graphics department. We made graphics for the faculty and staff and sometimes students. And he knew I was a gamer. Dungeons and Dragons, Avalon Hill board games, SBI games. And although Richard was not a gamer, he knew I was.
Do you have any of your old D&D stuff?
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say,
still playing.
No kidding.
Yeah. In fact, I just did a cover for a comic book called Knights at the Dinner Table.
Okay.
You know that one?
I just love the title.
Yeah, Kenzer and Company. They published this comic book and games, and it's about a terribly drawn comic book with this recycled art, but if you know anything about tabletop gaming stuff, it's hilarious. And I've been reading that book for a few years now, and I thought they do a lot of parody covers. So I did a QBert cover for that came out in December. Anyway, so I'm still playing that stuff. But to get back to it, this pinball company was going to start a video game division because pinball sales were drooping. And so Richard thought of me, and I said yes, because I had been playing, asteroids and centipedes and stuff like that at the bars back in those days, the early 80s, and it was like a dream job.
I would, but I mean, how do you anticipate, like, again, we were talking yesterday, like your character was in Wreck-It Ralph, and it's like from inception to today, I mean, how absolutely insanely cool was that to see your character in that motion picture?
Yes, that was pretty amazing. I had been out of the games business for a long time. I've gotten into other things, carpentry and having a building, stuff like that. I'm very good with my hands.
Sure.
And
also things that involve swearing.
Yes. Right.
Now we know the
hammer, thumb.
Yeah. It's been known to happen. So anyway, it was people who love that stuff, people of your generation, You guys are, I'm guessing maybe you're in your 40s?
Early 40s, yeah.
And so you were like 10 or 12.
Oh, loved it.
When we were making these games.
Yeah.
And guys like you, this was part of your childhood. You carried it all the way through. It's had a nostalgia factor.
I'll wait till you have a bagel, and I'll do a selfie over here just on your
You folks have kept it alive, right?
Well, I remember, for me, at Pampa Lanes, the first time they dropped Donkey Kong in, and there was a swarm of 50, 60 kids, and the quarter lineup was the whole entire top of the game. And it was, I mean, I remember that moment as much as I remember the birth of my first child. Like, no, I'm serious. It's like one of those things where...
I think that actually says more about you than it does him.
No, but video game was such a huge part of our youth.
Yeah, it's a defining thing of your youth. Absolutely. And your contemporaries contemporaries have opened up arcades, like Nick over there. Well, he doesn't have an arcade, but he sells to arcades and private people. And all around the country, these barcades are opening up. Barcades, dedicated collectors, scarfing up the old machines, restoring old machines, and so on. And that's why it endures.
Yeah, yesterday we were having a nice conversation. I brought up, like, you know, I found out, and you kind of dropped the bomb, that you don't own it. So, like I said, why don't you make a modern version of it? Because there's, like, Unreal Engine, and there's ways to make it like Super Mario in 3D, right? There's things to do, and you're like, I don't own it, I can't. And I'm like, it broke my heart.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's the way it was.
Yeah.
The good news, if this is good news, I hope it will be good news. I'm together with one of my old colleagues, and we're working on a new game. So I'm hoping by the end of summer, early fall, we'll have it. We're going to do it as an arcade piece. We're doing it in conjunction with the Galpin Ghost Arcade, which is the country's largest arcade in Brookfield, Illinois, not far from where I live. They're developing a number of games. So it's going to be I hope, a super easy but challenging joystick kind of game. With some very cartoony, I hope memorable characters. I'm drawing up some studies right there, the next table there. I'm enlisting my kids, right, to help come up with ideas.
Say we need beta testers. I'm sure we could give you a few gamer games.
Well, honestly,
there are a lot of marathon gamers at the Galpin Ghost Arcade. They come in from around the country, even around the world, try to break records there. And they do streams, and they've got a scoreboard up there in conjunction, like 3 Galaxies. There's like the big score arbiter out there in Iowa.
Right.
And these people are intent on setting records for games old and new. So we'll have some of those people on hand. I'm sure they'll be doing some testing.
I'm not going to lie. I mean, that's an offshoot. It just triggered an offshoot thought for me. I don't know that I knew that there was still arcade game development going on for like the stand-up units. I mean, like, you know, you only really think about consoles now, you know, with, you know, the PlayStations and the Xboxes and all that, and the Wii. You know, you don't think about new game dev going on, because like a lot of the barcades that are out there, yeah, they got all the old games, and they've got, you know, those, you know, the stand-up cabinets with all the emulators for all the old games and that kind of stuff. But you don't see a lot of new stuff. I didn't know.
That's why Doc Mack at the Galpin Ghost, as an owner, he feels there's a need in the business for some new products.
Think about if you have think about that. If you have 400 stand-up arcades, now you're bringing in an exclusive that just got developed by the guy that created QBert. Sweet Jesus, that's a draw. Yeah, it's smart.
I'm pretty sure Neil would want one.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, our studio is actually sits above Private Barcade. Well, he built it out for like he's a CTO. Got tired of taking all his peeps out, you know, to like Dave and Buster's and dropping $3,000 to $5,000 a night. So he said to heck with it and built himself a little private gaming lounge. And so we're up above it. That's where our studio is, and we're actually moving. It'll be our green room soon, because we're moving downstairs next to them and building out more studios. And that's like I said. I mean, you know, he's got a couple of those stand-up emulator, you know, pack units.
Yeah, and there are a number of collectors around the country, like super collectors, they call them. You know, yeah, actually more games than a lot of arcades do. You know, games in hundreds, old units, rare units, units that need a lot of work in city bases. The funny thing is, well, it's not funny. These machines were only designed the last few years, because there was no idea.
Who knew?
Well, the manufacturers, they were in the business of turning out new products.
Yep.
Every few months, new game. They had a factory to feed. They had no conception that these games would be valued beyond that lifetime they envisioned. In fact, they would have discouraged that because they needed to sell new products.
Right. I mean, I was watching one of my favorite shows is the Pawn Brokers from Vegas, Pawn Stars, and the guy brought in an actual Donkey Kong box, numbers matched, it was mint, like untouched, no cigarette burns. I mean, again, that's a big deal because you think about the arcades back then, and I think he said max retails like $800. I was floored. I was thinking $3-4 grand, thinking something like that.
It depends on the machine.
Yeah.
Some of them are pretty darn rare. And then, but sometimes people place different value on it. Well, to someone's wife, it's junk that's sitting in their garage, right?
Yeah. Both of our wives,
Someone else, it's a treasure.
Well, I had a stand-up wrestle fest. To my wife, that was like the worst thing imaginable for her. That's not coming into our home.
Right.
Son of a...
Well, but it's, that's Collectibles 101, which, I mean, they are. They're collectible. They're worth whatever someone's willing to pay for them.
Right. I remember one guy who's a collector, Jeff Roth in Indianapolis, and he was bragging about a Mad Planets. Mad Planets is a game I worked on Yamamoto, and it's kind of an unknown game in a lot of ways, but it's very highly revered. It's pretty high on some list in terms of desirability and just play action and all that. And this guy was crowing about how he got a call, someone had a machine, $50. He said, I'll be there. He hopped in his truck and drove immediately across state.
Sure.
To get his hands on it for a measly $50.
That's amazing.
And someone else, would pay a couple thousand.
Oh my God!
Get their hands on one that was in good condition.
You bring up a good follow-up question to that is, so what other games have you had your hands on that someone might know about? Are there any, or
that I've worked on?
Yeah.
Well, there's Mach 3, the early Laserdisc game.
Okay, the F-16, like that one?
Yeah. Well,
that was like the first sit-down.
It was a Laserdisc. It was a sit-down. It was also a stand-up.
Yeah.
I actually did very little bit on that one, but we did another follow-up as a kid.
Okay.
Because by that time, the industry was really in one of its troughs.
Right.
If you played that for more than 30 seconds, you were like a king of that game.
Right.
That was like, and I crashed.
Oh, well, yeah. No, I vividly remember sitting in that thing, and in my head, the Top Gun theme.
Yeah, totally.
Did you?
Yeah, we had another one that was called Us Versus Them, and where the development went kind of crazy in terms of they wrote a script, they essentially shot a movie, but it was a kit. We replaced the Mach 3s because the arcade owners, the operators, didn't necessarily want to pop for a whole new cabinet.
It took huge floor space up, too.
Yeah.
That was a big,
So that was one. I worked on another one that's kind of rare, was Three Stooges.
Okay.
And it got kind of bumped by Mach 3 in terms of
I want to play the Three Stooges game.
It was we were owned by Columbia Pictures.
Okay.
So we thought, well, this is a natural. Three Stooges. We're owned by Columbia. Columbia did all the shorts, Three Stooges. And we did it. It was a simultaneous three-player game. You could have three guys, each controlling one stage. And you went around slapping each other, throwing pies.
I want to play that.
Hitting each other with hammers.
I feel like we have to hunt that down.
I'm not trying to find one. It's
really?
Extremely rare. I think Doc is working a deal to get a hold of one.
What console? It was for stand-up?
This is cabinet.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was that one. Crawl. Remember that terrible movie?
That was not terrible.
No, and I remember that game.
But
I absolutely remember that game and
that's
the
another
movie.
game I worked on.
That was not a terrible movie.
It was not a terrible movie?
No,
Are you kidding me? The Glaive?
Yes. Glaive,
Every kid wanted a glaive. That's the only part of that movie. Like, that was it.
Yeah, that was programmed and designed by a guy named Matt Householder.
Just going to nerd out for a moment. The Cyclops, the Fire Horses.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. So I did the graphics on that, but Matt did all the hard work. And he's still in the games business. He's been on the West Coast for many years. He's doing mobile apps now.
Okay.
Word Nerd, I think, is his latest game.
Okay.
So, a lot of these guys are still in the business. David Thiel, who did the sounds that are so beloved in QBert, the random
Now,
That was David Thiel's work, and he's now does sound for pinball.
Okay.
He's working on like 5 or 6 pinball games right now.
No kidding.
There's been a resurgence of pinball because there's like 2 manufacturers.
Trying to make a little resurgence, yeah.
Stern is the main one.
Well, and I know there are more and more like pinball expos and cons, and that, like we were talking about Comic Cons coming up now.
There was one just in last fall in Chicago. Been kind of researching that.
Yep.
You can't emulate pinball.
No.
It's a pinball machine, and nothing else can sub to that.
Well, you can try. I remember, Xbox. Well, God, I think even Atari had like and it's no.
Now, have you seen there's a we've talked about it on our show a couple weeks ago, but the documentary, I think it's on Showtime, yeah?
It's called Atari Game Over.
Yeah, Atari Game Over, and it's about
all those cartridges.
What a fascinating documentary that was. But the fact that the guy that made E.T. was revered, I can't imagine when you say you walk into that beercade, how much how much that guy was revered by that crowd, and how much he must be revered by that crowd. It's got to be pretty cool. I'm just throwing that out there.
I have to scratch my head sometimes, but I mean, you can't argue with it.
Yeah.
I was very lucky, extremely lucky that QBert caught on like it did, and
you put your stamp into pop culture. Like, I mean, seriously, that's like how cool. I mean, again, I'd sleep well at night if I did it. And the best part is no catchphrase, so you don't have to go around going, I did, say the line, right? You kind of just the stamp and that's it.
Yeah,
right?
Probably the best thing is that my kids have always been impressed by that because they would watch The Simpsons, they'd watch Futurama, and there'd be QBert references.
Yep.
So despite my other shortcomings as a dad, there's always that.
Oh yeah, there's been Family Guy cutaways. It's been referenced in a lot of stuff over the years.
Hey, so we took enough of your time. I'll end it with this. Favorite game of all time is it besides QBert?
Favorite? In terms of video games, my favorite probably was Centipede.
Okay. Sure.
I know, very well beloved.
I'm trying to remember, was that first or was Missile Command with the trackball? Which one came first?
Missile Command was earlier, but Centipede, great game.
Centipede was way better game than Missile Command.
Well, no, I'm just trying to think which one was the first with the trackball.
Yeah.
Missile Command.
Right. Oh, definitely.
So, okay.
Jeff Lee, creator of QBert.
Dave, thanks so much.
Thanks for sitting down. Appreciate it.
We'll be sitting next to you, so it's not like you're going far. It's been a special episode of the IT and the D Show. We'll see you guys soon. Great Lakes Comic Con.
This is a previously recorded episode of the IT and the D Show.